Hi everyone! I bet you that if you go and stand in any playground on any given day, undoubtedly a fantastic spot for deep educational reflection, that you'll likely be standing right next to a game of semi-organised chaos involving a rugby ball, a rubbish bin, and what I'm pretty sure is a made-up rule about double bounce immunity. And I bet that if you had to give that game a grade, A, B, C or D, that you'd probably struggle. I mean, what would you even be measuring? The rules? Probably non-existent. The engagement? Fantastically off the charts. The learning? Massive. And the data? Well, yeah, good luck with that. And that's where this whole ABCD grading idea that has suddenly reared its head in New Zealand by the Minister of Education, Stanford, starts to wobble quite dangerously. Because schools, well, they're not spreadsheets, are they? The variables alone in a school are so immense that the spreadsheet itself would probably need to extend between here and Wellington. Now look, I get the intention, but that doesn't mean I'm a fan. Erica is hoping for a system that gives clarity, accountability, transparency even. All good things, I agree, and it does look lovely on a spreadsheet or a report, but here's the catch. When you simplify something complex into a single grade, you don't clarify it, you distort it. And if you don't get the right angle, then that distortion ends up looking like one of those grotesque photos taken of you by your niece during last year's Christmas dinner. It wasn't flash, was it? And when that distortion lands on real schools with real people in them, it doesn't just sit quietly in a report, it creates pressure, real pressure. And I say this because the moment a school is publicly labelled A, B, C or D, it becomes high stakes, not just internally, but out there in the community. Then it doesn't matter how a government wants to dress it up in terms of whatever measurement type talk they're currently spinning. When it comes to grades, communities will only hear it in terms of the grades that they got when they were at school. To them, an A or a D still means the same as it did when they were a student back in 1965. Parents will talk, Facebook will light up, reputations will form, often quickly and not always fairly, and suddenly a school isn't just a place of learning, it's a label. And if it's not already tricky, well, this is where it gets really tricky, because that pressure doesn't just sit on the system that it's supposedly grading. You know, I grimaced when the minister talked about this as a way of celebrating success. It lands squarely on the people inside it, the teachers, the leaders, the support staff, the kids even. And let's be honest, they're all carrying a fair bit. I don't have to remind you that we're already in a time where workload is high, expectations are climbing, and the emotional load of the job is heavier than it's ever been. So when you add a public grading system on top of that, what you're effectively saying is, yeah, not only do you need to do this incredibly complex human job well, you're also going to be continually publicly judged for it, but this time in a way that simplifies everything that you actually do. And you can't avoid it. That has an impact on well-being, on morale, on how people show up every single day. And some people will say, yeah, fine, that's what accountability is all about. Those schools with a D are packed full of useless people doing a crappy job. They need to be publicly humiliated. But those same people forget that schools are seldom full of crappy, useless people doing a crappy, useless job. Instead, they're full of people trying to do a role often with limited resources and a system that runs on scarcity planning, and the real world of a school that copes daily with a million different variables all vying for priority and importance. And yet those same useless people doing that crappy job still turn up daily to do the very best that they can. Personally, I think they need a medal. And of course, you don't have to go far to find evidence from the past educational reforms that tells us all that when people feel constantly judged, they don't do their best work. They do their safest work. And safe work is really the work that changes lives. And then of course there's the community side of it, isn't there? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. A grading system doesn't just describe a school, it brands a community. A D school isn't just about teaching and learning. There's no celebrating in a D, so it quickly becomes, that's not a great school, and that area is struggling, so don't send your kids there. And those kids, ... You get my drift. And just like that, a system designed to create clarity starts reinforcing stigma, particularly in communities already doing it tough. Now you tell me, how is that helping? Which got me thinking, who really is getting into Erica's ear and what is their end game? Because it doesn't seem to me that this is a model that's going to strengthen our schools at all. Instead, it's just going to confirm what everyone knows. The system simply isn't rigged fairly enough to enable all schools to get A's. Which leads me to my next question: what should we be doing instead? Now, I'm no expert, but after a little bit of thinking, I came up with 4 things that might actually help, properly help. I imagine that you'll be able to come up with a whole heap more. Firstly, we've got to get better at telling richer stories because numbers need a voice. Data, yeah, it can be fantastic, but without a story backing it up, it's a bit like a headline without an article. So our schools should never be just about presenting grades or numbers. We need to explain the stories behind them. What's going on here? What are we noticing? What are we going to do next? What are we proud of? And even what we're not proud of, but there's no way that we're going to hide this under the carpet sort of stories. And be outwardly proud of that whole story. Tell a story what it's actually like in your school. And A, B, C or D can never ever tell that story. And if you don't tell your story, and this might sound just a little conspiratorial, someone else will. And they won't get it right. And I'm looking at some, but not all, aero officers here, because let's face it, the people giving the grades are also fallible. Secondly, I reckon we should focus on growth, not snapshots, because learning, you see, moves all the time. A grade is just a photograph, but education is like a movie. Or maybe you could say a grade is today's weather, but it's not the climate. It tells us where we are today, but it's not necessarily a forecast of where we'll be tomorrow. So we need to shift the conversation from where are we to where are we heading. Make progress visible, celebrate that movement, because that's where the real learning is happening. Number 3, I think we also need to protect professional trust because fear shrinks good teaching. High stakes environments create cautious professionals, and it creates fearful professionals as well. Yeah, some will be motivated by that fear, but more often than not, that type of motivation leads to dark places that you go to when you're chasing the grade. But great teaching and great leadership, well, that needs courage. So build a culture where it's safe to try things, get it slightly wrong, learn and adjust, because if your team is worried about being labelled, then they'll never take the risks that actually improve the outcomes. I also think we need to keep the human in the system because that's the whole point, isn't it? You see, I've always believed that when pressure rises, people seem to disappear into data. Don't let that happen. Bring it back to names, to faces, to stories. Start with the people, stay with the people, because schools aren't built on percentages. And yeah, percentages do look pretty on the minister's desk, especially the nice ones, but they never tell the whole story of what's really going on. And let's face it, schools are built on relationships, and a grade can never accurately portray what's really going on in those relationships. And maybe that's the question we need to hold on to. Not what grade are we, but are we making a difference? And are we doing it in a way that sustains the people doing the work so that they want to turn up each day and keep doing the work? Because if the system improves outcomes but breaks the people delivering them, that's not success. That's just a different kind of failure. And in the end, well, maybe the real leadership move here is refusing to let a single letter define something that is as complex, as human, and as important as a school. Now maybe, just maybe, if you've enjoyed this video, then you'll also undoubtedly enjoy reading my latest book, 54 Quotes and Provocations. Well, it's stacked full of great leadership quotes and ideas to help free up your thinking time so that you can enjoy your job a lot more. Go and get your copy now.